And we have the most lovely Sammy Garrity. Sammy has mentored over 70,000 change makers to build personal and business brands for more than 2 decades. She definitely does not look old enough. The brand catalyst, Sammy, knows that too many entrepreneurs paralyze their success by not feeling good enough, worthy enough, or confident enough to be visible. That's why she and her husband Greg are publishing the 1 year No Fear book series and Invincible Impact program to guide small business owners in courageously building successful brands that create invincible impact. Sammy Garrity. I'm so happy to have you here, even though you couldn't, well, you could be further away. You could be in Australia, but you're in Texas, which is pretty far away. We go back, darling, don't we? And I always have to share the moment I remember meeting you. You were sat at a lunch on the same I was going to say my table, our table. And you were larger than life. You still are larger than life, full of energy, full of appetite for life. And I remember you giving out your business card that had texture on it. I think it even had it was embossed in some way, and it had scent. And in your introduction, that clearly was a masterpiece, because I can remember it 18 years later. You gave us all an education about a scent is really important. It's got to represent your brand. How do you want your customer to feel? How do you want the person you're connecting with to feel? It's not just about them knowing your name and number and how they can get hold of you. It's about the experience they have. So I'll never forget that. And then from that point, we built this amazing connection and friendship that has stood 18 years. Maybe we've not been in each other's pockets all that time. That's the power of networking with the intention of making friends that you build trust with. And we've been mountain walking, we've wild camped together, we've laughed and cried together. Oh, we've made it this far. And I'm just, first of all, so grateful for your friendship. And I get to have your incredible wisdom, brilliance, and expertise in my life. And if you'd have paid me 50 quid for this intro, it'd have been worth it, I think. So lovely. I'm going to start with my question, which is, can you recall, or which experience do you want to recall and share where you've had that stirring, that aching in your body that you knew you were meant for more?
Wow, that's such a big loaded question, and what an introduction. When you just said 18 years, my heart flipped. I was like, wow, 18 years of life, of
It's a whole
love,
adult.
of adventures. Yeah, it's like, gosh, that makes me feel like I should grow up a bit.
Never.
Wow, that meant for more moment. I have so many meant for more moments. It's which one do I pick? You know, the meant for more moment when I'd built 5 companies, had every I made it moment, you know, my dream house, the dream income, the dream everything, but felt so spiritually bankrupt that I had 4 near miss heart attacks in 3.5 months, and made the decision I'm meant for more. God is clearly telling me you're meant for more for this. And I'm just going to keep giving you these nudges, and they're going to keep getting bigger until you follow the path that you're meant to take. And I think that's probably the first meant for more moment that I recall. And I've had so many more of them since, but I'd say that's the biggest one.
5 near heart attacks.
Or
4 near heart attacks. Were you in the same position each? Were you in the same work, or that's working in the same way, and all 4 happened? So you didn't listen to the first or the second or the third? Just saying.
who's stupid enough to do that? You know, I think when I look back on that time, I look at how self-absorbed I was, how focused on money I was, how focused I was on keeping up. Because when you get to a certain level that I was at that time, and I'd built what had become quite a big branding and marketing agency. And you and I used to go climbing mountains, and, we knew each other at that time. But at the point that I was experiencing these almost life-ending moments, like you and I had kind of not gone different directions, but both of us, your business took off, my business took off. But when I look back on that moment, there was so much pride in me that I didn't tell anybody what I was going through, because I felt like that was weakness, and I couldn't afford to show my weakness, because I felt like, well, I'm at this level, I can't tell anybody what's going on inside. I can't trust that if I say it to, the people that I am surrounded by, well, are they going to see that as weak, and then they're going to stop working with me or stop referring me? And so I really saw that as a position of weakness. I know different now, but back then I didn't tell anybody what I was going through. I kept it all to myself, which actually built it up even more. And I remember the third time, you'd think that I'd have got the message the first or second time, but the third time I was in, is it St. James Paget Hospital in Leeds? And it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just remember being wired up to all the sticky things on my chest. And I had the monitor next to me. I had a curtain kind of pulled around me, but I could see the rush of everything that was happening in A&E around me. And I just remember the overwhelming smell of, like, that antiseptic smell in hospitals, and the lights are so bright. It's like these strip lights. And I just remember like being so overstimulated by that. And the doctor coming in and checking everything over and talking to me and asking me questions and ticking off the things. And I remember him catching me look at my watch, and he said, "Do you have somewhere to be?" Like, really sarcastically. And I said, "Yeah, I've got a pitch in the morning. How long will it take before I can get out of here?"
Gosh.
And I remember him just looking at me like, "Do you realize why you're here?" And I didn't care about why I was there. All I cared about was that I had to pitch to this company in the morning, and I had to get out to complete the final parts of the pitch. All I cared about was that. So I was so just self-absorbed. I wasn't focused on anything other than, well, all the people that I was surrounded with, they were all super successful. They're doing this, this, and this. So I've got to keep running to catch up. And I just felt like I was constantly running to catch up all the time. Even when I surpassed my goals, I still felt like I was running to catch up. And that kind of breath constantly, well, you're supposed to have that when you're running away from a tiger. You're not supposed to have that every waking moment.
Pitch.
And yeah. And so, yeah, that was a big deal. And the fourth time was really the time
Can I just ask a
I
question
had
before
that.
we go on to the fourth? At that time, was that when you had a team? And so that's just such a lot of pressure that every pitch, every potential winning a client is less about greed or selfishness, really. It's more about, I'm paying however many mortgages here. There are people
Right.
that are relying
Yeah.
on me. And so the pitch wasn't just be nice to win some business because I'll make some more money. This is essential to keeping
Yeah.
people
By
in
that
jobs
point,
that their livelihoods depend
yeah,
on.
very much bigger than me, and a lot of responsibility. And I actually remember that moment when we had quite a big team. We had a team of 13 at that time, and I remember Grace was responsible for all the social stuff, and she arranged this karaoke night. And I remember walking into this place and looking and seeing so many people there, thinking, wow, like, this is busy. And I asked, like, where's whatever the booth was? And as I went to walk over to it, I realized that all the people that I'd seen, I was actually responsible for all of those, because they'd brought their wives, their girlfriends, their husbands, their boyfriends. And I just remember absorbing that. And that was quite a shock, because we'd been so busy growing that I hadn't, and we just kept extending our offices, because we were in a large mill that we'd converted, and had the
It was
architects come in and
beautiful.
do all that. Oh, I loved that. But we just kept extending. So, and I wasn't really in charge of any of them. I was just in charge of getting the business in. And so it really, like you say, it became a lot of responsibility. And so, yeah, that pitch wasn't just about my success. It was making sure that we looked after everybody else as well. And so I did feel an overwhelming responsibility, and I was in that constantly. And because everything had built really, I'd say by accident rather than design, I was just so enthusiastic and I wanted to help people grow. And so we just kept growing as our clients kept growing, but I didn't really know how to run a business. I was learning on the way, so there were a lot of things that I felt like I should be keeping up with that actually I shouldn't have taken that responsibility on, but I personally absorbed all of that. So yeah, by the time that fourth one happened, that was really my wake up call. It's like, am I really meant to live like this? How much longer can I live like this?
But did you know another way to live? What was your option? It's either this way or.
Well, yes and no, because I'd been helping all my clients to build these successful online businesses. We were an offline, physically walk through the door design and marketing branding agency, but I'd been helping all these people to create success online for so long. Like, I knew exactly what to do and I knew how to do it. I just wasn't doing it for myself. And that kept prodding me, that kind of, when are you going to do this for you? And then a client would come along. And so with every client that I said yes to, I was saying no to myself. I was saying no to the calling. I was saying the no to the meant for more, that God kept prodding me, like, how many warnings do I need to give you? How many times do I need to, put a curveball in so that you at least look the other way? But I just wasn't seeing that. And of course, I'm way more sensitive to that now. But back then, I just wasn't. I was so focused and felt so much overwhelming responsibility that, like you say, people were relying on me. And I didn't want to let anyone down. Like, one of my highest core values is loyalty. Our operations director that I'd brought on board, we'd been friends for years, and I poached him from the business that he'd come from. And so I didn't want to let him down. But it's funny how things happen when you know you're meant for more, and when you actually make the decision. There were a chain of things that happened that I wasn't expecting that ended up becoming blessings. And they are things that I was so worried would be, everything's going to go wrong. And I just totally over dramatized it. And yet, actually, all the things that I'd created drama in my mind about turned into blessing.
So there's two things I want to ask, because rather than someone waiting for a physical indicator that is potentially life-changing, what feelings or stirrings did you have that you potentially parked or ignored that's tangible?
I think at that point, when I look back on it, it was less feelings and more knowing. It
Right.
was like an inner knowing. I would say, obviously, the journey that I'm on now and the path that I'm on now is very, very different to who I was then. And now,
Just share the journey that you're on now, so people can see where you were, where you are now, and what the bridge was.
yeah, I would say, I kind of mentioned it a little while ago, I was so spiritually bankrupt. So I was wealthy in every other way, but spiritually not. Well, I'm now on a spiritual journey with God. I've accepted Him completely into my life, and I receive very acute instructions now, which again can be inner knowing, but quite often I'll get in my right ear, I'll get like as if you were stood next to me talking to me. So, I could be walking into a building or walking past a building and I get stop. I get, it would have just sounded completely mad to me if I was on the other side of this. It would have sounded mad, and I wouldn't have even believed it if it hadn't have been happening to me. But because it's happening to me, I obviously am going through that experience. But the experience of saying, you know what, I am gonna step fully into this amazing journey of not just being a Christian, but in saying yes to God, having a relationship with God, not just ticking a box by going to church or reading a Bible, but truly having a beautiful, brilliant, gorgeous, loving relationship with God. And that's not a relationship I had back then. And I rejected all of that. But of course, now I know that He was trying to talk to me back then. I know that He was trying to get through to me back then. And that inner knowing, the inner knowing that, I'm helping all these other people to do this, and I keep getting this calling that I need to be doing this for thousands more people. When you're building a physical live in-person business, whether it's a bricks and mortar business like we had, people walking in from the into the design agency, and you're serving clients one-to-one, or if you're building a coaching practice and you're seeing people one-to-one, whatever business you have, if you can't earn money when you don't turn up, that's a challenge, right? And so that was one of the things that was really coming through strong to me was, hang on a minute, like that fourth time I was on that hospital bed and I thought, died right now in this moment, what have I actually left behind? I've left nothing, because I hardly see my family. They don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I don't know what they're doing anymore. I haven't seen them for like 9 years. Christmases and, maybe the occasional big celebration. That's the only time I was seeing them. My employees had become my friends. I didn't have time for friends outside of work. So my employees had become friends. But it's like the worst kind of friends, because they're friends that you love, but you can't talk to, because they don't want to know what's going on and like what's stressing you out. You can't afford to tell them that, because they'd be leaving and getting another job if they knew what was going on in your thinking and your mindset. Sometimes you had friends that you can't talk to, a business partner that you don't want to stress out, so you just get on with everything on your own, and before you know it, you're taking everything on your own. You've got no friends outside of work, you're not seeing your family. What am I actually doing this for? If I died right now, what have I actually left? I've got 5 companies that I was running at the same time. I've got 5 companies. Well, they'll just close or they'll get taken over. My business partner, what will happen? Well, he'll either close, sell, or keep running it, but he's not going to need me to do that. What will happen to all the employees? They'll just go and find another job. And I suddenly found myself in this position of feeling incredibly lonely, and realizing and recognizing that if I did leave this right now and I went and followed what's truly in my heart, which is to stop serving in a one-to-one capacity that's really squashing my potential, what would happen if I did grow a business like the one I've been helping my clients to grow, and then I could reach thousands of people with one message instead of one-to-one, one-to-one, one-to-one at a time. And so ultimately that fourth time, that was a big calling, partnered with when I walked out of the hospital the fourth time, and the doctor said to me, he got to the doorway, and it's the same one that I'd seen when I got admitted the third time. And he'd seen me look at my watch. And as he got to the doorway, it was like he was going off to see another patient, and then he just stopped. I say doorway, like the curtain thing. He stopped there. And then he turned around and he said, and he used my previous married name. He said, Miss Blindell, you're free to make your own choices, but you're not free of the consequences of those choices. I suggest you change what you're doing. And with that, he just disappeared off to another patient. And I thought, yeah, I think now's the time. Now's the time to actually go and do it. And it was really hard, thinking, oh my God, I'm letting everybody down. This goes against my highest value. I don't want to let anybody down. But then when I went into the office and said, I'm complete, I'm done, this is what I'm being called to do this, I need to go and do it. It turned out that the guy who I'd poached that had become our operations director, he ended up taking the business over. He still has that business now, all these years later. He actually sold the business then to a company in York, and he now works for that business because he realized he's a great employee and a terrible business owner. So he sold the business, sold himself with the business. He's so secure. Actually, what I thought was going to be the worst thing in the world ended up being the biggest blessing. And I think we can dramatize things and make something so much bigger out of stuff, can't we? And then once you've got some distance from it, you can look back and say, wow, like if I hadn't have made that decision, how different would his life be now? So yeah, gosh, I would say that's probably my biggest meant for more moment, because of everything that's then led to since.
I mean, it's pretty dramatic, isn't it? And it's pretty unavoidable to listen to. What do you think happens for people then when they've got that stirring or that ache, and they don't listen to it, and they maybe stay in a leadership role in a job that, almost with some belief systems of it's better the devil, the noise you can hear is Lexi that's blending nicely into the sofa behind, but not. She's got an itchy. Like to keep it real. Yes, so somebody that's perhaps in a leadership role and they're staying because they've got a couple of beliefs like, I've started so I'll finish, quitters never win, or it's better the devil or I'm too old for change. Who'll want me? What would you say to them,
I
having
would
gone through your meant for more moments? Because I think you've done it in a way that you've up leveled each time
totally,
in your growth spurt.
every time it has up leveled me. We can go through those periods often where we feel like we're never going to come through this. Oh my gosh, like I'm going to look like such a failure. I had all that stuff going on. Like, if I walk away from this, I'm going to be the biggest failure, right? And what I've realized since is recognizing when to quit, and I now call that exit strategy. So if I'd have seen it as an exit strategy instead of I'm quitting, so I'm failing, then that would have been a way better, healthier approach. And going back, I think my mindset is the biggest thing that I would have done differently. I would have done everything that I did exactly how I did it, but my mindset was the thing that was really killing me, as opposed to everything else. It was the way I was talking to myself. I'd never have talked to anybody else the way I was talking to myself. Oh, you're such a failure. Like, nobody else feels like this. You can see everybody else. Look at all these people. They're all so successful. They're all doing it really, really well. I bet they don't go home and feel the way you feel at night.
And I mean, it's funny how what we say to ourselves, and underpinning the things that we're saying to ourselves, is a success model. Look how successful you were. I mean, that mindset of giving yourself a hard time and pushing yourself and thinking you're not as good as other people, made you strive to be successful. So then I know some people that say, yeah, but if I let go of that, then I'm going to rest on my laurels and I'm going to not be as driven and motivated. So, what did you swap it out to? So, that mindset to what that worked for you?
I would say for a while I didn't, because I didn't know how. Like you said, did you know another way? No, I didn't. I didn't know another way. I've had to learn another way. And I would say that the mindset is, I call it what if strategy. It's my what if strategy now. So when I feel those words starting to come up, in fact, I very rarely do now, but if I ever do, I think, what if? Like they say, well, what if this doesn't work? What if it does? And I think, I go to the positive what ifs just naturally now. So, I use this analogy with our members, and I'll say, there's a lot of people that say they've got a fear of public speaking, for example. And I say, well, okay, well, if you feel that coming up, I want you to imagine that there's two sides of the stage that you can go. You've got this amazing audience that can't wait to hear your message, and yet you could think two ways. You could think, what if I trip up as I'm walking up the steps to the stage? What if I fall flat on my face? What if I forget my words? What if the audience hates me? What if I make an offer and no one gets out of their seat? What if I make an offer and everyone gets up and then I can't deliver on it? What if, what if, what if? And you could totally go down that route, and you could walk up that side of the stage, or you could walk up the other side of the stage that says, what if this is the best thing I've ever done? What if this audience love me so much they all go on the next step of the journey with me? What if everybody floods to the back of the room to buy my offer and we deliver it so well they then become our ambassadors, and it all grows without me even having to work hard anymore? And it's just making that decision. So make a what if in the most positive way,
Well, the
because
other
that's
thing
also setting an intention.
yes. And the other thing I just want to add in there, what if I don't have a fear of public speaking? You know, we assume that our fear is true, but actually we mislabel so much, don't we? We take action on an assumption that we've just assumed is a fact, like I have a fear of public speaking. I mean, it was really interesting. I know that that was just an example, but I remember when I used to do sales for hotel groups, I absolutely believed I had a fear of public speaking, and I would have to present to the sales team. And the night before, I'd be in the bar with the sales team. It was a very hospitable environment I worked in, getting drunk, telling them all, I'm so nervous about presentation tomorrow. And then tomorrow would come round, and the thing that I was nervous about was, are they looking at me to see if I'm nervous? So I had created, it wasn't until years later until I learned about the mind and how we can retrain it. And then I did my first workshop and I thought, what if I'm not nervous though? What if I'm actually excited? And then that, what if I treat this like these people are here because they want to be here? What if they're just friends that I don't know yet? So your what ifing is probably one of the most single powerful questions out of all the NLP that we know. That is one of the most powerful ones. Anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you. I've no idea where.
No, I love the story, and it will hopefully relate to those that are listening or watching. That what ifs are you thinking right now? Because you can pretty much tell by how you're feeling versus what you're doing. Like, are you living by example? Are you living in your heart and leading by example? Or are you living in fear and some of the drama and the made up things that we really tell ourselves? I mean, I loved your chapter in Catalyst of Change where you talked about, well, if you're going to make something up, make it good.
I've actually got a really funny story. A friend of mine was presenting. It was when her business was quite new, and she was presenting at York Venture Fest, and she said, "I'm so nervous." I said, "Well, how about you do a visualization?" Now, I thought wrongly I could leave her alone to do a visualization. I did have to talk her through it on the phone because she'd only rang me for a natter. And I said, "How about you do a visualization? Just visualize the room, visualize it going really well." Anyway, she was ages in calling me back, and then she called me back, and I said, "How did it go?" All excited, feeling proud of myself that I'll have made a difference. And she went, "Oh, it was awful." I went, "How can it be awful? It was yours." And she said, "Well, in my visualization, hardly anybody turned up. There was a guy that sat on his phone, and no sooner had I finished my introduction, he said, 'This is a load of rubbish,' got up and walked out." And I said, "Well, what else happened? Because you were whiling calling me back." She said, "Well, I followed him." I followed him and had a conversation with him in the corridor. We laugh about it to this day. And I said, "So your mind could make anything up. It could make anything up that would support you for tomorrow. And you chose that." I said, "Right, I'm going to have to sit with you and go through this. You cannot be left to your own imagination, clearly." So, normally visualization works beautifully, but there are the odd person that wants to see through something not going so well. It's so funny, isn't it? But
It is.
for those of you that are watching and listening right now, visualization is so, so powerful because your mind doesn't differentiate between visualization and reality. It thinks if you've visualized it, you've experienced it, so therefore it's possible. So it's really key that, not that this is meant to be a lesson, sorry, but I just wanted to fill it in. It's really key that when you do visualize, you visualize what you want, because your mind is like a genie. It thinks your wish is my command. And when you think about some of the things that we think, there's that saying, isn't there? I need to think about the worst case scenario, and then at least if it happens, I won't be disappointed. But I think that's an old belief that we're brought up with, don't you?
That is awful. I think that what you're doing is you're setting intentions that there will be a plan B. I remember a coach years ago saying to me, "What if there was no plan B? We're playing with what ifs. What if there was no plan B? What if there was only plan A and you were going to make it work?" Now, when you have a plan, it doesn't mean that you only stick to the first idea of what that plan is. That one plan, that one idea might have 27 different ways to make it work. But you keep going and you stay in lane with it. And I think especially if it's an idea that that is bigger than you. I knew when I was walking away from that business or businesses, I knew that there was something way bigger, way bigger. I didn't know what it was. I was walking away with a heck of a lot of faith. When I talk about it now, I refer to it like, I can't remember what the Indiana Jones movie was, but it's the movie where he's running away from the enemy and he gets to the edge of the cliff and he's got there's nowhere else he can go, and he's just got to take that leap of faith. And as he steps out into the unknown, the step appears underneath his foot, and then he takes another step and another step appears underneath his foot. And so as he's walking, these steps just appear in front of him. And I refer back to that time. as that, because yes, it could have been, well, I've got a comfortable life, very comfortable, beautiful home, amazing car, all the things that money can buy. I've got it all. Beautiful offices, gorgeous team, lovely clients like yourself. Just, I was so lucky. I was so blessed. There was no part of my life that anybody could look into and say, she hasn't got it all. I had it all. And I also didn't. I had all the things materially, but it just wasn't enough. And I could have stayed there. I so could have stayed there. It was very comfortable. Um, you know, I could so have stayed there, but I just knew that I wasn't meant to.
Well, you
And
see,
after those
they're
points,
comfortable.
yeah,
It's funny how we become comfortable before near deaths.
yeah, right.
Because but it's almost certainty and familiarity then becomes what we consider comfort, but it's anything but comfortable, isn't it? And once you had that stirring and that knowing, I think there's a discomfort that I have to take action because I can't live with this knowing that I'm meant for
Yeah,
more.
yeah. And I had that knowing, and I think based on, you said about what was it? Was it feeling? What was it? And it was a knowing. But like you just said there, I recognized that knowing became an ache, and it's almost like an itch that you just have to keep scratching, and think what I've recognized is whenever I am meant for more, whenever I've got to that period of comfort, that level of comfort, and my belief is that God then calls me to that next level. And so things will start happening around me that make me very uncomfortable, like things will stop, or relationships, partnerships will suddenly end that I wasn't expecting to. Like, my business partner, we'd started growing another business. We were about a year and a half, maybe 2 years into the business, and it had become global. Finally, I was doing for us what we'd been doing for all of our clients. Went global very quickly. We ended up flying all around the world. We ended up building a brand strategy company in Calgary, in Canada. We were constantly flying to the States. We were being called to go everywhere. We were in Bali, 1 week, and then the next week we'd fly out to Johannesburg and launch in Cape Town. And, it was just like a wild ride. And then he, at the most unexpected time, said, you know what? I feel like I need to go and find myself. You found yourself. Now I need to go find myself. Okay. And that was a period of like high success. And I was thinking, this is going so well, like, and he's saying, well, this is going well, yeah, but it's not my version of what I want for my life. And so, God removes people from things that will hold you back, or will set you back, or will set them back. So, it's not always about us. It's also about the people that we're impacting on. Sometimes they're taken away because they're not on their journey, and you could be over helping, over comforting, you could be over supporting. You could be over supporting them to stay where they are comfortable, and eventually God will take them away and you think, what did I do wrong? What happened? And it's nothing to do with you. It's their journey, and you can't take responsibility for that. And so there's been periods of my life when you think everything's going so well, and then something stops and you go, whoa. Like, we built that company, he'd then left. I carried on growing it, and it was on such a roll. Oh my gosh, we were delivering 34 live in-person, quite large masterminds. They were getting to be quite big, all over the world every single month. Like, sometimes we had 2 or 3 running. We'd have one running in Australia, one running in Fort Lauderdale, another one running in New York. These could, it was constant and it was growing. And then lockdown hit. Well, because it was a physical business, I lost my business overnight. Again, like, wow, didn't see that coming. Now what do I do? And I would say that took me 2 years of grieving over that business. I was talking about it last night to someone. I said to them, I still think I am grieving over that in some way, because I was so in love with the business. I was in love with our members. I was in love with how we were growing it. I was in love with the impact we were making. And then bang, it's gone. And
Out of your hands.
totally out of your hands. But you could be so in your flow, enjoying it, and you're going in a direction, but it's not the direction you're meant to be going. And if there's something that you are meant for more to be doing, You'll be called higher to that. And when I look back on that, I can join all the dots, all the signs. I was being called away from that way before it was taken away from me.
Mm.
And so I was getting those nudges again, the feeling, that itch. I was getting that. I was getting the warnings. I was getting it all. And eventually it's like, you're not listening to me. You're meant for more. I'm just going to remove it all from you, because only by removing it from you will you have the headspace to be able to now take the next step to the next calling. And I was saying to my friend last night while we were putting the Christmas tree up, when I look back on that time, it's really interesting because I can see how, like, I was grieving for a good 2 years after that. And I took a massive step back. I threw myself into philanthropy. We did everything for charity. I was allergic to money. I didn't want anything to do with money. If being successful and having money meant that I was going to be burned out and have heart attacks, if being successful and making money meant that I'd be on such a roll that it could all be taken away from me at any minute, then I'm just going to give it all away. And so over that 2 years, everything I did was to raise money for charity. We supported hundreds of charities. I started a thing called Ripple Fest. Every single month we charged ticket sales. We chose charities. The speakers that were speaking, they chose the charities. We supported so many charities. And there gets a time where you have to look back and say, well, if I can create that level of success when I'm giving it all away, what would happen if I chose to believe the what if of, I now know better, I can now do better, I now understand other business models, and now it's time for me to apply all of that and now say yes to God's mission. And that's ultimately what happened. And yeah, what a journey.
And, not without needing the ability to trust yourself. I think self-trust is a key ingredient that gets overlooked so often when people are making change. They want to have everything in place. What's my idea? What am I stepping into? Do I know how to do it? I don't know how to do it, so I can't have that idea. I need to think of an idea of something that I do know how to do. Dependent on how somebody's level of self-trust will determine as to what goal they set and if it's big enough. For you, and there's so much work I do with self-trust with people because it's often the only missing component. When that's in place, then they dare to dream big enough. But for you, what does self-trust create in your world? Or what have you, both in your world, but also what have you seen in other people when they haven't trusted themselves?
Really interesting, because we've mentioned I'm on a very different journey now, and I no longer have to trust myself because I trust what is greater than me. I trust that God has seen something and grown something in me that, he doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. So I know that he has qualified me and I have qualified myself enough now that I don't need that confidence in myself. And actually what I've found, especially with my members, when they have those wobbles of self-confidence, I say, look, okay, let's park that to one side for a moment, because you actually don't need to be confident in you. And they always look at me like, what? Of course I need confidence to do this. I say, no, you need confidence in the idea. As long as you've got confidence in the idea, as long as you can say, what do I have in the palm of my hand right now that could just make a difference to somebody? Knowing that you can make that difference. And if you have that confidence in that, you're going to grow your confidence on the way. Because as you see people getting the results from the thing that you are doing, your confidence is going to start to grow. Oh, whenever I do this thing, they get this result. I'm going to do more of that. And then you do more of that and you see more people flourishing, or whatever it is that you choose to do. And you'll gain more confidence and more clarity. You'll feel more connected to yourself, to your idea. I've watched people just say, okay, all right, I haven't got any confidence in me, but I am really good at this one thing. Great, let's go all in on that. They go all in on that, and then it's like watching them blossom, and then they become confident in other things. So I think, yeah, you, to a certain extent, you need to have that self-confidence, but I think what we put a lot of pressure on ourselves having to be confident in everything. And actually, if we can be confident in just one thing, I've found that we can grow our confidence from there. But also that where I'm at now, having built so many things and done so many things, and I'm at this stage now where I can be completely confident in him. I'll give you an example. The very first time that I spoke on stage, and this was way before I had a relationship with God, just putting that out there. This is like 15 years before I realized I'm trying to do this all on my own. Like, I've got a whole spiritual army behind me that I can't see, but I know is there, right? And I remember that first time, and there were about 300 or so people in the audience, and all I could see was this silhouette because the stage was really bright ahead of me, and I'm stood at the back of the room watching all of these people, you know, glued to the stage, glued to the speaker that was on there, and I knew it was time. And I'd planned, I'd prepared, I'd rehearsed, I knew what I was talking about. And so as I start to make my way to the side of the stage, it was like for every step I took, another chunk of my content disappeared. And the closer I got to that stage, the less I had. It got to the point where I was stood at the side of the stage, like just at the side of the curtain. I could see maybe the first 1 or 2 rows with the lights on them, but the lights were really bright, and the rest of it was just silhouettes. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't even know what I'm going to say. I don't know what I'm going to say. And in that moment, I remember looking up. I wouldn't say I'd know who I was talking to, but I remember looking up and saying, this is all on you now. This is all on you because I've got nothing. This is you. And I walked up onto the stage, and I can't remember a single thing that I said. I can't remember a moment of being up there. I can't remember anything about it. It was like the minute I took that first step, I just amnesia, complete amnesia. And I did whatever I did, and I got off, and then they took a break. And I remember having this massive queue of people coming up and talking to me. I loved it when you said this. Oh, I so resonate with that. And oh, I need this. And I just remember having this complete kind of reminder, I guess, that you can trust that you have the experience, you have the knowledge. When you open your mouth, it is going to pour out. So we don't necessarily have to, I don't know, this is just my own opinion based on my own experience, and everybody has their own experience. My experience is that I've learned that I don't have to trust myself now because I know enough. My story is my story. I've lived the experience, so like I can't forget it. And I can trust that there is something so much greater than me that is going to pour into me and flood through me into everything that I do. And I call that bigger something God. And everybody would have, you know, some people call it the universe. I say, well, God made the universe, but everybody has their own way of talking about that. And for me, I know that God is going to move through me. I am his hands, his feet, and his heart, and I will do whatever it takes. And now when I hear that calling, he's letting me know I'm meant for more. And there are some very uncomfortable moments we've had over the past year, but I've said yes because I know that he's got my back. I know it's going to work out. And I know that even the painful things that I go through, I'm going to grow through. And that will be my next level of wherever that takes me. And I say, you know what? Pick me. I'm ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the self-trust, I think it takes self-trust to trust. You know, you say, I trust. It's that I trust statement, I think is so valuable. Like, I trust I've got the skill. I trust in my faith. I trust in my belief. I trust in. And the reason where the question came from was that when you said about who was the character that you mentioned?
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, that's it. And that the step arrived in front of him, and then the next one and the next one. And I think sometimes that's what trusting in yourself. Look, I trust that I can make great decisions in the moment. I trust that I can be present and hear the clues and see the opportunities and take that leap. So I trust that even though I don't have all the information, even though I don't know exactly what I'm doing, I trust that I'm going to be okay.
That's the big one. I'd say that's the biggest one because we all need certainty that we're going to be okay. When you think of every situation you go through, sometimes someone only has to say those words. It's all going to be all right. It's all
Yeah.
going to be okay. And that's enough.
Well, then you can feel, even when you said it to me then, I went,
Yeah.
yeah. And because those words are so powerful, from the right person, in a meant meaning. Somebody can say, oh, you'll be all right. And it'd be like, that's just irritated me. But the right person, like yourself, it can be, okay, I'm going to let go of that tension and put in my energy in that direction and be more in the solution or being in the presence of it. Sammy, I've seen your incredible company. You are growing and grown. I say company, that sounds very clinical because it feels it's more of a community, but of course there's the reciprocity. What does the future look like for you, in as you're always growing? What's the more for you?
Something completely unexpected that I could never have predicted, but that I am very much being called to and am being qualified for on the way. And that is ministry. And as you know, that's something that I was like, I'm being called to ministry. Why me? Like, I have zero background. I only picked up a Bible 9 months ago. I'd never been to church until 7 months ago. Like, this is not something that I'm familiar with. This is completely unfamiliar territory. And this is where, I've had to lean into, well, I believe you because, okay, like if you've got this calling for me and you believe that I'm meant for more and that I'm meant for more in a ministry direction, I'm going to trust that you're going to put the people, places, and things in front of me that's going to qualify me along the way. And it's really interesting because the way that it's developed is we've got our business that we've built, the Invincible Impact program and Invincible Income, Invincible Identity. So we're really creating an invincible, highly confident entrepreneur, solopreneur, business owner who feels that wobble and doesn't want to do it on their own. And so we've created that community to be able to say, well, look, we'll hold your hand as you build your brand. Step in, you can trust that you're going to be okay. We've got you. We've got your back.
Mm.
But the interesting thing is that I've spent all my time building this and learning skills, and I've developed over 1,000 mini courses, masterclasses, books, tools, resources, templates. We've built the world's largest brand building resource for entrepreneurs. And I'm saying to God, how am I going to build a ministry? Thinking that He wants me to be a vicar or a pastor or something. And He says, no, you don't have to be that to go into ministry. You can take everything that you have done and make it widely available for everyone. At the moment, the only people that can access it are your members. But you are meant to build a business ministry, a ministry that really supports and serves those that really need it at the very, very beginning stages of their business. And he's right. We've only made it available just to our members. And so we're now taking the resources and the tools and everything that we've created over the last 24 years that have supported over 70,000 business owners so far to start, build, and expand their brand. Now we're taking it into a Christian audience as well. So we have impact catalysts and we have kingdom catalysts. And our kingdom catalysts are our catalysts who really want to be inspired by and incorporate into their business biblical and scriptural principles. But how do you apply that practically? Like, we can read the Bible, we can hear someone deliver a fantastic message, but how do you apply that practically into a business so that you can lead and serve in the way that our amazing creator is showing us how to do it every step of the way? He wrote the book. All we've got to do is learn how to apply it. And so it's taken me in that direction. And so we still run our programs for our secular clients as such, but Kingdom Catalysts is launching in January. And I'm
Wow.
really excited for that. We've got a Kingdom Catalyst magazine. We've got so many things that are coming out that an amazing online resource that will help to spiritually grow. Even people who aren't necessarily on a Christian walk, these resources will just help you to walk right in life. You don't have to be a Christian to do the right thing, to be a good person, to grow a good business. And so we'll be doing that rooted and planted in
Wow, that's amazing, darling.
I'm excited and also very nervous when I get into the human side of things. When I start thinking about the material side of things, that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
But when I look at it from heaven's view, I say, he's already got this covered. All we're doing is bringing heaven down to earth. Like this is just going to be amazing. I'm using stuff that we've already created and things I already know to help others grow. Well, I can put my faith in that.
And just to wrap us up with then, lovely, what bit of wisdom, story, or tip would you like to give to our viewers and listeners that are maybe connecting with that feeling that they're meant for more? What would you say from your vast life of experience?
Oh gosh. I would say really it comes down to two things, maybe three. It comes down to three things, and they all begin with V. The first is vision. And I would say, don't squash your vision. See the vision from heaven's view, not your own eyes. See your vision from heaven's view. What is God planting in you? What seed did He plant in you before you were even born that He's taken you through the whole journey He's taken you through right until this moment where you are now made for this moment because you know you're meant for more. And if you were to look at that vision, not through your own human eyes of who you are now, but step into the future, even 10 years into the future, and look at yourself 10 years in the future from heaven's view of what is the potential, the possibility, like grow it, build it, expand it, add color to it, make it as big as you possibly can. And when it gets that big, then make it bigger, add a zero, make it so beyond anything that it's so big that without God, you couldn't achieve it. And
I
so
agree.
create that.
I think, I know you've got two other V's, but I think there are two reasons why people don't achieve goals. One is that their goal isn't big enough, just isn't big enough. It doesn't excite them enough because they've done too much accommodating around their current ability. And the other reason is what they believe. So I completely love that. What are your other
Yeah.
V's?
Well, once you know what the vision is and you've really seen that, then get back to your core values. Your core, not ones you've borrowed, not ones that belong to your mum and dad, your own core values, what is really important to you. And I would say, take your three top core values. What's really important to you? Who do you want to be, I guess, is a way of saying that, because your values are who you are, not what you do. Your values are who you are.
Mm.
So who are you? If it was just you and your creator, and you were just being your true natural self, and you peeled all the layers away of who you've got to be for everybody else and what you should do, must do, have to, got to, remove all of those layers and just get back to, it's just me and my creator. Who am I in his eyes, and who do I want to be when I go back into the world from this moment? So now you've got your vision and you've got your values. All right, I've got this big picture. I've got this vision seed that I'm going to keep watering and nurturing. I'm going to step out in faith. I'm going to go all in towards that. And here's who I'm going to be as I do that. And the third V is your value. Now, your value is who you already are, the skills you've already built, all the things that you already are without learning another thing, without doing anything else, without learning anything else. Who are you? But from a historical perspective. And I'd encourage every single one of you to sit down with a journal or a bit of paper or a napkin. It doesn't matter. You could type it in, you could talk it out, however you want to do it, what's right for you. But just look back over your life and look at the amount of value you have stored in each of those cells of your body. The things you've been through, the stuff you came through, the way you've supported others, things you've done that you really enjoyed, that you haven't done for years, things that you maybe got into but then were talked out of, things that bring you joy. Just list out all of those things that you've achieved, awards you might have won, things you might have built. Doesn't matter if it didn't work out in the end, but you still built it. What did you do? What were you persistent about?
Mm.
And just even spending an hour doing that, you'll be amazed at how gifted and talented and wise and amazing and brilliant you really are. And having those three things, so I've got this vision of the future, I know who I'm going to be as I step into it, and I'm carrying all this value with me as I take this next step, well, you're going to see that you're meant for more, because it'll be black and white in front of your own very eyes, and it will have come from you, no one else. And I believe that's a really powerful activity to do. It's what helped me after I came through that period of walking away from the business, almost having those heart attacks, walking away, moving to a country that I didn't know anybody other than my parents. 1 meg broadband. I wasn't connected to the world. It was literally, I moved to the middle of nowhere in a tiny little remote part of France so that I couldn't be around anyone. I removed all of that so that I could get quiet. And that activity that I just shared with you is the very thing that I did. And that's so doing that and then listening. You know, we're taught to pray, which is for some people is pleading. You know, help me with this. Please do this in my life, you know? But, you know, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. I prefer to be grateful for it, even if I don't have it yet. Thank you for the thing that's on its way, right? But I think what's more powerful is the meditation part afterwards. So to pray is you speaking, to meditate is God speaking. So allow, once you've done that, just allow the thought, that pressing nudge, that itch, allow it to be expressed, and don't judge it. Write it, speak it, however you want to do it, but don't judge it, because it's not coming from you and it's not for you to judge where it's coming from. So just allow it to come through, and that's going to give you your next steps. And you know, and those next steps might make you feel incredibly uncomfortable. Giving everything away and leaving our country, moving to the other side of the world was not comfortable. I can promise you that. There's not a part of the journey that we've experienced since we made that decision in January that has been comfortable ever since. But I'm getting really good with not being comfortable, because I'm not meant to be comfortable.
Well, I think we feel uncomfortable with consciousness, don't we? It's that being awake. What I'll say when you do that exercise is that then you realize that where you are, you have outgrown. Once you've done that exercise, you can't not look back and think, oh, I've massively outgrown where I currently am. Yeah, and so not only does it help you step into the what is more meaning for me, but it helps you realize that now is the time to step away, because you can't unknow. Once you do that exercise, you can't unknow it. And that giving it space, that meditation, is a bit like planting a seed and leaving space around it for it to grow, rather than planting a seed and another one, another one, another one all around. And then when it comes to grow, it can't get the light, it can't get the water, it can't get the nourishment. And so it doesn't grow into its potential.
Well, it doesn't, and quite often can die, just like a plant that doesn't get watered. And then you look back on it and you go, well, that didn't work. Well, it didn't work because you didn't water it.
Yeah.
But this is where you are the perfect next step for somebody who is feeling those urges, those itches, now you've done the activity. I need to trust somebody to present this idea, to brain dump all the things that are coming to me, because I think one of the worst things you can do, just from experience, is to, without formulating and brainstorming the idea with somebody who knows what they're doing and can nurture it and nurture the positive aspects of it, the worst thing you could do is, you know, go tell your friends down the pub or whatever, before you've expressed, explored, expanded and exploded the idea, is go and tell, you know, people who aren't moving in that direction, who aren't living the same life or lived experience that you are. And you will quite easily have that idea crushed before it's even had the ability to be planted. It's like someone takes a seed out of your hand and throws it down the toilet and says, who do you think you are? You couldn't do that.
Or they turn it into a Frankenstein where you don't recognize it, and it doesn't serve the purpose of what you were looking at fulfilling, and the goal was to fulfill that purpose.
And now you're not hearing God, you're hearing somebody with an opinion, and opinions are like buttholes, everyone's got one. So now, like you say, it could be just stretched into something that is no longer the vision seed that has been planted in you. And it's been planted in you because you are trusted with that. You are trusted with it. And he's trusting that he gives that to you, and you're going to water it, you're going to grow it, you're going to nurture it, and it's going to lead to the life that he sees for you. So don't get distracted. Don't look left, don't look right. Just look to
Way
an
good.
incredible coach like you, Lisa,
Thank
who can nurture and nourish. And like you did that for me. I remember laying on your couch years ago. It must be about 15 years ago. And you did the visualization exercise with me, and you had me seeing. I think you saw more in me that I couldn't see. And that's what a good coach does, and they help you. They don't tell you, they help you to see what they can see. And I remember you doing that visualization with me, and I could see me teaching. I could see me delivering workshops. And these were things I was not doing at that time. And I could see me doing that. And I remember when I explained it to you, and at the end you said, if you do that, I'll buy it from you. Like, I
You
want to
know
do
what?
that.
I've just got goosebumps because I remember that. And I think I remember at the same time you were visualizing it. Without you saying what you were visualizing until you told me at
You
the
saw
end,
it.
I had written down something similar, like I'd seen your vision almost. And I think sometimes you can just see someone's potential pouring out of them as though it's clear as day. And you're right, it requires somebody that will hold that as you decant it before you get afraid of your own light or your own dreaming big. Because I think people can often get afraid of how big something is. The other thing that I love that happens from my own experience, and then I see it happen in so many other people, is that they get clear on the idea. They've got the courage to hold the idea without shrinking it. When I leave them overnight, I worry what size of goal is coming back to me the next
I
time.
know that feeling.
And I have to remind them it was that size for a reason. But that's just nature, human nature. But I think when they start to take an action, and certainly when I've taken an action, there's so much ease around the action, and the response from life meets. And Peggy, my spiritual mentor, she says you set the goal and God will breathe the air into your sails. And I can't tell you how, or even that Indiana Jones, was it Indiana Jones? The step, I haven't seen it, so the step arriving underneath the foot. If it can't just come from lying back and visualizing and taking no action. You've got to show up and be fully present in life and driven and motivated and excited and courageous with embodying the goal, haven't you, or the dream. But what I have completely noticed is when you look back, the amount that you put in compared to the life, universe, God, whoever, whatever our invisible source is, it ends up being, I reckon we only put 25% in. I reckon the universe, God, chips in 75% to make it the 100. Even if we're giving 100%, when you look at the overall, what's the word, activity, growth that goes with it, I'd be surprised if our contribution is 25%. I'd reckon it's less. There's just so much more when we follow our true inner calling. There's so much more to support us than we currently know.
Well, it's when you say yes to it and then you take the aligned action. There's a lot of people, like most of the people watching this or listening to this has probably heard of The Secret, and the universal law of attraction for those that have never heard of that before. And I've got a lot of friends that were in The Secret, and it's amazing how, you see their lives and how their lives have grown as a result of this one book that they came together. Well, she wrote it, and then it turned into a documentary, and they then got involved in the documentary style, whatever it is, phenomenon, I suppose. But again, it doesn't happen without taking the aligned action with it. Not one of them say you just see it in your mind and then wait for it to happen. You see it in your mind, you get it clear in your mind, and then you take the aligned steps that make it happen. A friend of mine years ago wrote a book called If the Secret is So Great, Where the F is My Ferrari? It's like, it can only happen if you take that action. Years ago, I had my first paid speaking event. So I was making a sale from the stage, and I'd never done it before. I'd seen other people do it, but I'd never done it before. And I thought, I don't know that I can do it. Can I do that? I don't want to do it. That's not me. I don't want to be selling from the stage. But they've told me that I have to. This is a sell from the stage event, so I'm going to have to. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to get clear on what I'm going to do, because if I can see it and if I can feel it, then I can do it. So I remember laying in the hotel bed in Orlando, Florida. This was in 2018, October. And I was laying in bed, like, spread out like a starfish. And I visualized exactly, moment for moment, what that was going to be. A bit like your friend, but I was positive about mine. And I saw how it was going to play out. And I let my mind wander, and I let it go to other fantastic things that I couldn't expect to happen. But it was like, okay, so what are some of the things that'll happen that are brilliant that I'm not expecting? And I saw all these things, and it gave me ideas. It was like, it wasn't just my vision. I was partnering on the vision, and they were like, woohoo, right, she's visualizing, let's plant some things while she's there. And there were quite a few things actually that's brilliant. Okay, excellent, I'm gonna do that. And so that really prepared me. And I took action on the things. I immediately journaled them out. I took action on the things to make sure they would happen. I put everything in place, and it happened better than even I'd seen, to the point that we had a stampede to the stand for 3.5 hours. I was signing books and signing people up to our program, even though the big name speaker was on stage, and he was the one they were all counting on to make loads of sales in the room. And there's little old me who's never made a sale on stage in my life, because I saw it and it happened. And that was the launch of that business going global very quickly. And I just think it's in those moments where you see it and then take action on it. It's no good seeing it and receiving all these amazing visions from God, source, the universe. It's no good receiving all of that and then waiting for it to happen and saying, well, it hasn't happened yet. This is rubbish. I don't believe in this universal law of attraction thing, because you haven't then taken the action that creates the traction.
Or another thing that I've noticed that some people do that haven't had coaching is create a plan, but don't take any action from the plan. But they've invested so much time in creating the plan because that's where they're comfortable in the planning, but not the action from the plan. So that's just a form of procrastination, isn't it? So
yeah. And perfection.
Yeah, so don't be disillusioned with, don't be, no, it's not disillusioned, don't be fooled by thinking the plan is the end of the journey. It's not.
And also because plans change. Like, you can spend a load of time perfecting a plan, and then literally the next day, God says, that's what you think you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I'm sticking to the plan. And God's saying, but I've got something greater for you here. Like, you're trying to give me one rose, I want to give you a whole bouquet. And like, the plan. And he's like, well, I'm trying to give you everything, but you're just missing it. You're just missing it. How can I give you all of this stuff that you've seen if you're so focused on that? But there's something better. I think it's like, meant for more and something better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can be specific, providing you add and better. Yeah, darling, I've loved this conversation, and I'm so looking forward to seeing your vision and mission launch in January. Just remind me of the name again.
Well, so we've got Impact Catalyst and we've got Kingdom Catalyst. So Kingdom Catalyst is launching in January.
Lovely. Lovely. And I can highly recommend Impact Catalyst. I'm a member. I get so much value. I have implemented so much as a result of your amazing teachings and wisdom and heart and spirit that you do it in, and our community, because I'm one of them now, our community, because we take responsibility for how we show up, don't we? Our community are just incredible. It's a great place to be. It's a great place to grow from. So thank you so much for your time today, darling. And
thank you.
And
thank you to each and every one of you listening in and tuning in. And thank you for saying yes to whatever is next for you.
Yes, I echo that. Goodbye for now.